Since childhood, you were conditioned to believe that defending yourself is noble, that when you're misunderstood, attacked, or falsely accused, you must explain, clarify, justify. That silence is weakness, that passivity is guilt, that to say nothing is to admit defeat. The twisted reality is that you lose the instant you protect yourself. You give up the frame. You agree to play the part they have assigned you. By responding to the accusation, you elevate it and validate it. And worst of all, you show that you want to be viewed as decent, innocent, or moral. Power is not self-explanatory. Power doesn't protect. Why would a lion give a sheep an explanation of why it hunts? Why would a monarch defend his reign to the populace? Why do you always reach for linguistic defenses and apologize using your body language, tone, and presence rather than your words when someone challenges your behavior, beliefs, or intentions? Something chilling about this. You appear more guilty the more frantically you attempt to cleanse your identity. Examine the past. Examine the courtroom. Take a look at social media. Perception matters more than innocence. Furthermore, power shapes perception more often than fact. Power also doesn't flinch. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli was aware of this. He observed courts, churches, and funerals in silence and noticed a troubling trend. He who excuses himself accuses himself. It's not just a catchy phrase. Human frailty is the diagnosis. It's the reason why accusations, even if unfounded, ruin reputations. For this reason, public apologies frequently make scandals worse. That's why the blatant rise while the innocent suffer. Since reality isn't impartial, it is communal. Its foundations include stories, symbols, and nuanced changes in the balance of power. Additionally, you lose control of the narrative the instant you clarify yourself. You're in the frame of someone else. Even if there is no jury, you are still on trial. However, why do we still do it? Why do we have this instinctive, almost instinctual need to protect ourselves? When someone misjudges us, why do we feel exposed? Why does silence seem like a sign of failure? Why does it feel like a confession of guilt to not fight back? Is it possible that your biggest weakness is simply your need to be understood? Is it possible that truth is helpless without control? Is it possible that the universe favors mystery and punishes clarity? This is more than just social strategy, you see. This is more profound, into the mental architecture. Long before you were able to speak, the ancient letters were etched into your mind. Survival-written scripts, fear-written scripts. You weren't made to stand up for the truth. Acceptance is what you were born to defend. And that makes all the difference. This is the conundrum you have to deal with. You seem more guilty the more you attempt to establish your innocence. You appear less valuable the more you strive to prove your worth. You gain less respect the more you strive to be liked. Nevertheless, we continue to attempt, like moths that mistake a flame for light and fly into it. Because we believe people will see us if we only utter the correct things. Recognize us. Please pardon us. Show us some respect. But what if being quiet is indeed the key? It's not cowardice, but unmanageable, to escape the unseen rope that pulls you in the direction of approval. To become proficient in the Machiavellian technique of dominance, not avoidance, through unresponsiveness. And during that quiet, to turn the frame around, to convert judgment into doubt, charged with terror, criticism that is rendered irrelevant. But before you can accomplish anything, you need to comprehend the underlying cause of this trap. It's not just society, after all. It goes beyond culture, it's you. Go deeper now. Let's discover the psychological mechanism that causes this weakness to be destructive, automatic, and invisible. The world goes into a panic the instant you stop protecting yourself, not because they have triumphed, but because they are unsure about their next course of action. The script has been broken by you, and now at last, you are in control. However, This type of insurrection is quiet. It isn't dramatic. It is a surgical procedure. It starts when you make the silent decision, I no longer seek to be understood. If internalized, that sentence is nuclear, due to the fact that it separates you from the unseen ties of societal control. To be clear, this has nothing to do with conceit. It has nothing to do with apathy. Power, actual internal sovereignty, is at issue. You must eradicate the virus that keeps reinstating the need to justify yourself, the urge to be viewed favorably if you want to regain your identity, your frame, and your power. Whose eyes are good? By what standards is it good? Let's examine the great rebels of history, the strategic ones rather than the chaotic ones. The philosopher Emperor Marcus Aurelius was subjected to constant political influence. Everyday bread was betrayal, but he hardly ever gave an explanation. He behaved with ataraxia, which the Stoics defined as a composed, unwavering presence. Meditations, his notebook, was never intended to be read. He never gave the mob an explanation for his decisions. Why? Because genuine truth doesn't require performance. When others are unaware of your thoughts, they project their own anxieties onto you, giving you advantage. Imagine stillness as a throne that is empty. People hurry to fill the void with their own interpretations as soon as you stop defending. Ironically, that's also where your power increases, because now, rather than the other way around, they are pursuing your meaning. Step 1. Construct the frame and hold it. Every exchange, accusation, and discussion is a fight over the frame. Who establishes the premise? Who decides what the topic of this discussion is? Most people react to the other person's body language when they engage in verbal argument. However, Machiavellian power takes the initiative. Rather than stating, "That isn't accurate, allow me to clarify," you remain silent, you maintain eye contact, you cock your head a little, and you keep quiet until they start to wriggle. Alternatively, you subtly reframe. It's intriguing that you believe that. Do you have to believe that? That isn't an excuse. That is difficult. The burden of proof is reversed. They are now defending themselves. The current has been reversed by you. Step 2. Allow the energy to flow through emotional aikido. The trick is that you don't have to block every blow. Allow the allegations to flow, and then stay put. This is the technique of absorbing without reacting, or emotional aikido. Observe the disarming of people when their provocation fails. They anticipated recoil. They became motionless. It causes people to doubt their goal, their reasoning, their emotional mastery. You've now created uncertainty in others, not in yourself. Friedrich Nietzsche intended this when he said, "The person who battles monsters needs to be careful not to turn into one himself." I'll become predictable if you battle every monster. Managed, responsive. True superiority, however, occurs when you move aside, allow the monster to charge past, and stay unharmed. Step 3. Let go of the need for resolution. The need to protect is frequently a result of an addiction to closure. You want the other individual to comprehend, to give a nod, to acknowledge one's mistakes. However, that is a trap. Since the Machiavellian mind produces emotional closure on its own, it does not recognize the necessity for external emotional closure. When someone makes accusations against you and you don't answer, you have to practice not feeling gaps. There is no pressure. There's no need to finish the loop. The loop has ended. By refusing to open it, you have closed it. Step 4. Employ mysteries to your advantage. The loudest people in history weren't always the most dangerous. They were the ones you had trouble identifying. The oracle, the strategist. While others are in a panic, the composed strategist observes. You have to stop being readable, not in an automated manner. However, in a manner that conveys, "I don't require your consent, understanding, or approval." More than anger, this disturbs people because they don't comprehend the rules you're playing by now. They were taught to anticipate conversation, conflict, emotional responses. However, you reply with void, and they face themselves in that emptiness. Step 5. Develop your unsent message skills. Here's where you turn deadly. You are insulted by someone. To respond, your fingers itch. To send the ideal reply. To rectify the story. Write it instead. Create the smartest, hottest, most devastating response you can think of. Don't send it then. Burn it. Remove it. Grin. Because you have now removed the emotional burden without sacrificing your authority. The unsent message represents the pinnacle of self-control. I no longer dance for crumbs of validation, it states. Step 6. Destroy the courtroom. Within, the most harmful charges are not from outside sources, they're inside. The scenario is replayed in your mind. What if they believe I'm cruel? What if they don't understand me? In the inner courtroom, you can act out all the roles of a judge, attorney, defendant, and jury. Take it out. Set the benches on fire. Turn off the voices. Put an end to the trial, as you have already proven your innocence on your own. That's the basis of true power. This goes beyond self-help. Psychological warfare is what this is, and it's yours now. Thus, the next time someone tries to defend you, hold on, take a breath, keep the frame in your hands, let the quiet speak for itself. See how confused they become, and grin, because you are now familiar with the game. One last reality remains, though, one strategy that goes beyond all others, a revelation that will change your perspective on the world forever. Are you looking for the ultimate key? Then move onwards, because the last door will soon open. They don't have to keep you quiet. You keep quiet. Your yearning to be understood is a much more elegant tool than tape or chains. It sounds innocuous, almost moral. However, if you look past that need, you'll discover a maze of insecurity, identity confusion, and dread of your ancestry. This goes beyond simply protecting your reputation. It's about protecting your life. Because when someone questions your opinions, choices, or appearance, they pose a greater threat than your social status. They pose a challenge to your sense of self. Carl Jung once cautioned that the shadow, the suppressed, rejected aspects of ourselves that we act as though don't exist, lies beneath our polished exteriors. However, when people criticize, accuse, or misinterpret us, something horrifying occurs. That shadow moves, you sense it. The fear, sweat, the need to talk, to explain, to clarify. The accusation may be true, but not because it is. The terrible thing is that you do more than merely protect yourself from other people. Self-defense is what you're doing, from that hidden inner voice that suggests, perhaps they are correct. Perhaps I am self-centered. Perhaps I made a mistake. Your defense, therefore, turns into a custom, a desperate attempt to silence your skepticism, not your opponents. Silence feels intolerable because of this, because there is no cover when there is stillness. Not a sound, only you and the thing you're attempting to flee. Furthermore, perception, not fact, governs optics. Everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are, he wrote in The Prince. The fatal fault in your reasoning is right here. You believe that people will understand if you speak the truth, that they will notice you if you present enough proof, talk clearly, and act honestly enough. People don't see you, though. They perceive symbols, roles, masks. You rationally defend yourself. They make emotional judgments about you. Facts don't matter to them. Power is important to them. And when you stand up for yourself, you expose the absence of power. Examine the structure of the planet. Defendants have to make a plea. The defendant needs to provide an explanation, while the accuser merely needs to point. The innocent must demonstrate their innocence. See the imbalance? The person without authority always bears the burden of proof. The foundation of this system is far older than politics. Living, being a member of the group, meant life in the tribal world. Death was the price of being cast out. Therefore, being accused of betrayal, weakness, or wickedness was more than just a social annoyance. The penalty was death. You have to give an explanation. You had to establish your worth. Your brain retains information. Beyond that tribal circuitry, it hasn't changed. It continues to hold that rejection equates to destruction. For this reason, you defend. It's fear, not reason. Primitive. Paleolithic, buried within your blood. Nietzsche saw this as well. He referred to it as ressentiment, the slave morality that develops when people distort morals to elevate defense to a virtue because they lack the strength to assert authority. What they lack in strength, they make up for in morality. Therefore, it feels honorable to defend yourself. However, it is actually a slave's reflex, an internalized script that is taught to people who cannot afford to offend. The psychological twist, however, is as follows. You strengthen the idea that you must defend yourself the more you do it. The loop then starts. They attack more after you defend, after feeling assaulted, which makes you feel even more helpless. They know how to treat you because of you. However, it becomes even more gloomy. This behavior weakens you in more ways than one. It causes you to become divided. For every defense creates a bogus identity, an image that has been carefully chosen to be safe, acceptable, and tasty. Additionally, you become less genuine the more you talk from that location. Your responses are no longer truthful. You're reacting out of fear, and what starts out as a plan turns into a disease. Your voice is taken away from you. You only know what will prevent you from being misinterpreted today, not what you believe. This goes beyond a simple communication problem. This is a crisis of identity, because you can't define if you're constantly defending. Therefore, ask yourself, when you're not reacting, who are you? When no one is looking, who are you? When you stop giving explanations, who are you? The silence you're most afraid of could be the key to who you really are. But first, you have to pay for continuing to be in this cycle, because compulsive self-defense has effects that extend beyond psychology and perception. Your reality is shaped by them, your connections, your fate. You won't be able to ignore the extent of the damage once you realize it. You believe you are elucidating. You believe that by clearing the mirror so that people can clearly see your reflection, you are re-establishing harmony and resolving a misunderstanding. However, each time you justify yourself, you are inadvertently creating a jail. Perception as a prison, mortared with necessity, you locked it yourself. The hardest part is that you think you're acting morally. But powerless truth is only noise. Additionally, you grow less apparent the more you speak. Let's take our time. You protect yourself. They perceive ambiguity. They experience power. They also lean in, much like predators do when they detect weakness in the herd. Something changes subtly. You are no longer in charge of writing your own story. In theirs, you are a character. The worst part is that the majority of them aren't even doing it on purpose. They are not required to. The human brain is designed to take advantage of vulnerability. It's not malevolent. It's a form of evolution. According to research in cognitive neuroscience, status cues, how people present themselves, respond to stress, and occupy space, have a significant impact on the brain. And among the best markers of inferior status, over-justification of oneself. Not only in what you say, but also in your tone, body language, and tempo. This person is lower on the hierarchy is the primal script that is triggered in the observer's brain, and they cease paying attention to you once the script is activated. They pay attention to the messages your energy conveys. Therefore, you've already lost, even if your remarks are excellent, as they're not evaluating your reasoning. Your posture is being judged by them. They now start to regard you as such, giving your thoughts less weight. You are put to the test. Your power diminishes. Once enigmatic, your silence now seems cowardly. You become unnoticeable. That's how whole identities fall apart without a cry. With micro-surrenders rather than a grand betrayal. Small instances where you sacrificed your appearance to maintain harmony, win favor, and avoid misunderstandings. However, perception is only one aspect of the repercussions. They scuttle farther into your connections because your buddies are now expecting you to give an explanation. Your significant other develops an addiction to emotional power games. Your constant attempts to defend your words give your family the impression that they can be used as weapons. You won't be living your life soon. You're controlling their responses. You have turned into a public relations agency for your own life. And what happens to someone who spends years living this way? They lose their internal compass. Is this true? Is no longer their question. Is this correct? Will this make them upset? They inquire. Will they get it wrong? Every idea is filtered. Every decision is questioned. All boundaries are made negotiable. Until finally, no self remains to protect. Just a bunch of masks sewn together out of dread. We were alerted to this danger by Carl Jung. He referred to it as the persona, the fictitious personality we create in order to get acceptance and stay out of trouble. However, the true self perishes when the persona takes over. The world also adores personas. It gives them prizes, until the day it throws them away. Then what? You make an effort to take back control. However, you are no longer taken seriously by the world, since you taught it not to. People learnt to expect an explanation from you, a rationale. I apologize. And after you quit giving it, they don't value your quiet. They see it as a sign of guilt, because your strength has never been seen by them before. They forgot you had any, since you've kept it buried for so long. Here's the catch, though. It's frequently too late to cleanly undo it by the time you realize this. You will have to pay to get your frame back. People will fight back. They will call you aloof, conceited, and frigid. Not because you are, but rather because you no longer fit the part they were used to. And that's the real cost of spending too much time defending yourself. You start to become dependable, controllable, and secure. However, power is never secure. Power is erratic, hazardous, and emotionally inviolable. This explains why the strong are dreaded and the weak are sucked up. You see now that pride isn't the issue here. It has nothing to do with ego. The goal is to survive. You will eventually vanish if you continue to defend yourself, not in a visible, spectacular collapse. However, in the silent demise of your power, identity, and authority. What is the escape then? Is it even feasible to survive without self-defense? Yes, but a radical uprising is necessary. An operating system-wide psychological detachment so severe that it rewrites everything. Because you have to stop needing in order to stop protecting. The rebellion, the following chapter, is where it all starts. They said that fighting back was what strength was all about. They said you have to respond when someone asks you a question. That you have to explain yourself when someone doesn't understand you. Silence is a sign of guilt. That silence is a sign of weakness. That being misinterpreted is a worse fate than dying. They were dishonest. The ultimate truth has nothing to do with strategy. Not about keeping quiet. It's not about looks. It has to do with something more profound, something existential. The world doesn't need an explanation from you, since you are not a part of the planet. Give it time to settle. It was never about right or wrong that you felt the need to defend yourself. It has to do with ownership. You handed over the keys to your identity sometime along the line. Your sense of self was outsourced to the masses. And each time you gave an explanation, you begged, "Please, tell me who I am." The true trap is that truth is not the focus of the defense instinct. Identity reliance is at issue. If you want someone to think you're powerful, loyal, intelligent, and nice, after that, you lose your freedom. Because their view is now holding your identity hostage. And it is in attachment, not conflict, that power dies here. We were cautioned by Friedrich Nietzsche that he who cannot command himself must obey. Obedience is defending oneself. It is submitting to approval rather than the truth. You still have power over me, it says. You're really kneeling, but in a different position, even while you think you're defending yourself. Do you want the last key? It is incorrect to perceive true power. Being visible is not necessary for true power to exist. The mind-opening Machiavellian contradiction is this one. Because as soon as you no longer need to manipulate perception, everything else is under your control. People are able to detect it. They experience a particular kind of fear when they come across someone who has nothing to prove. They are unable to control you, not able to agitate you. I can't make you feel bad. Your morals cannot be used against you, because you have already made up your mind about who you are, and you can't hear a word they say. The ultimate kind of power is that ego invisibility. Identity is untouchable. The ancient Stoics referred to this as apatheia, not indifference, but the absence of disruption. Machiavelli saw this in princes who reigned without need the affection of the populace. It is the quality that Nietzsche appreciated in the Übermensch, the person who establishes their own ideals, even if they are misinterpreted by everyone. How does this feel, though? In reality, what does this type of independence look like? Not having to yell is like going through fire. It's like not blinking when your name is being dragged through dirt. It feels like you're the only one standing in the storm, unharmed, entire, and in control, while everyone else is whispering, condemning, and accusing. Not because you're keeping anything from others. However, because you've surpassed it, since you have viewed the game but have decided not to play. Allow people to pursue their reputations. Allow them to battle for reputation. On the peak of, "but I was misunderstood," let them perish. Such struggles are not necessary for you. Because the last irony is this. People cease attacking you when you are unable to protect yourself. They understand that they stand to lose nothing. No response. Not a bit weak. No grip handle. You get smooth, chilly, untouchable. They flee because your silence faced their pandemonium, not because you resisted them. And all that's left is silence. Not a blank stillness, though. Not complete quiet, sovereign silence. It is the quiet of a person who has found their inner peace. And the rarest thing in the world is that, due to the fact that most humans are mirror images, they only exist as carefully chosen, modified, and delicate reflections. However, you break the mirrors when you quit defending. You leave the theater. The mask is burned by you. What's left? You. Nude, complete, unrepentant, unquestionable. The trip does not end here. Something lovely and dreadful is about to begin. A life without consent from others. People will misinterpret you. Someone is going to assault you. They'll label you. It won't matter, though, because you have regained sovereignty, which is the one thing that cannot be taken or given. Therefore, ask yourself one last question. Could I still stand tall if no one ever understood me again? If yes is the response, you've already prevailed. In their game, no, not according to their regulations. However, the conflict within is the most profound battlefield of all. Furthermore, your words were never the weapon. You were always silent. Therefore, the next time they say, explain yourself, protect yourself, explain your stance, grin, and leave. Not because you're weak, however, because you are now at last free.